had some criticisms about my decision to go to China for diagnostic healthcare instead of pursuing it in the UK. A few sarcastic comments like, private healthcare does exist in the UK, you know, or if you can afford to go to China, you can definitely afford to go private. I thought I would tally the numbers so that you can see exactly how much it costed with the way that I did versus the private healthcare route. And then you can tell me what you think. So if you remember, I had the specialist consultation with a doctor when I arrived, and then I had the bloods, then I had the ECG, then I had the endoscopy under full sedation, so I fell asleep. I had the recovery room. They found 2 lumps, so they took 2 biopsies that went to the lab for testing, and then I had another specialist consultant doctor for treatment options. I also had the H. pylori breath test, and then 8 weeks of treatment. So all of that came to £298.60, which is phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal. I don't know what you think, but for me, that is absolute value for money. The whole thing took 5 days, but then I needed the biopsy run through the lab, and that was an additional 7 days. So in total, 12 days for like £300. Now let's have a look at the private healthcare in the UK. Okay, I'm going to pop it right here. Now, obviously, I didn't do private in the UK, so this is all from research, from looking online and calling a clinic. I've taken the conservative approach on this because actually one doctor's appointment with a specialist consultant can vary between £250 and £350. So I picked the conservative number. If you wanted to take an endoscopy privately in the UK, you're looking at between 3 and 5 grand. That is the reality of what the internet has told me. The cost difference is crazy. You're looking at £300 versus 3 to 5 grand in the UK. For me, that was totally worth it. Obviously, I flew all the way to China for that, so it's not like for like comparison. So let's include those costs as well. If you're a British citizen, you will need a visa. Visas cost £130 for the 2-year visa. My flight was £488 return direct from London to Beijing. I would strongly recommend you take a Chinese airline over a Western airline because Chinese airlines can fly over Russian airspace, so it means the flight is shorter and cheaper, whereas if you were insisting to go with British Airways or something like that, the flight would be 2 hours longer and several £100s more expensive. So I would recommend a Chinese airline if you can. For accommodation in Beijing, you can get away with between £25 to £45 a night for a normal room, just a normal room with a window and a bed, you know, just normal, middle. You can obviously get much more expensive rooms in Beijing, and you can of course get much cheaper rooms as well. So for the purpose of this, I've stuck £400 as an accommodation budget for 2 weeks. You could go more, you could go less, it's totally down to you. And then obviously food and drink. So for 2 weeks in China, if you were being conservative, you could get away with a daily food budget of £10 a day. That's if you're having like breakfast, lunch and dinner outside. Bowl of nice handmade noodles could be like £3. Breakfast homemade could be like £1.50, and dinner could splash out a little bit, do £5-6. This is being conservative. If you want to find expensive food in Beijing, you will absolutely find expensive food in Beijing, but it is nothing like what we're used to in London. For 2 weeks, I've stuck £150 as a budget. I obviously spent a lot more because I went traveling, I went to see my friends. In total, you could have done 2 weeks in Beijing, accommodation, food and all your medical stuff, all in at 1.5 grand. Now, I'm not saying 1.5 grand is not a lot of money, right? Not a lot of people have that, especially at Christmas. I'm just saying 1.5 grand in total for what I did, plus my diagnostics, treatment, peace of mind, everything that I got from that, plus a holiday in China. Whereas I could have stayed in the UK and I could have gone privately and I could have paid 3 to 5 grand. Just here in my neighborhood. No trip to China, no delicious Chinese noodles, no exploring Beijing. For me, it was absolutely worth it to go to China, 1,000,000%, especially for the efficiency, because I've done private before, and still, when you're paying 3 to 5 grand, you're still going to wait a couple of weeks for your appointment. You're not going to get an appointment tomorrow, not like in China. In China, I can book a doctor's appointment for this evening or for tomorrow morning, no problem. In the UK, even if I'm paying 5 grand for my endoscopy and appointments, I'm still going to wait at least a few days, maybe a week, maybe even 2 weeks for that private appointment. So I do not think you get value for money for doing private in the UK. I would 100% go to China again. Maybe if you're watching this, you still think it's not worth it. You'd rather pay the 3 to 5 grand to do it private in the UK, and that's all right. That's your opinion. It's no problem. But for me, I felt I had a really excellent experience. I learned a lot, and I got to have a trip in China. I got to eat real authentic Chinese food and see the sights and have a really good time, on top of getting all of my medical treatment and stuff sorted. For that, it has been worth it 10 times over, and I hope this has been helpful. And if you have any questions or anything at all, please let me know. Okay, bye.